Just a few months after the Trump administration was forced to halt its controversial family separation policy, which we'll talk more about in a minute, thousands more children are expected to be separated from their parents, but not at the border. They're the kids of more than 300,000 immigrants living in the U.S. under temporary protected status, or TPS. That's a program that gives legal asylum to people fleeing violence or environmental disasters in their countries of origin, at least for now. Over the past year, the Trump administration has started to revoke the protections for people from 6 of those countries: Haiti, Honduras, Nicaragua, Nepal, Sudan, and El Salvador. More than 6,000 TPS recipients live in Massachusetts from El Salvador alone. Earlier this month, a federal judge put the administration's actions on hold, but if they're allowed to resume, those Salvadorans will have until September of next year to leave the country or face deportation. An even bigger problem, their children, many of whom are American citizens, would stay behind in the U.S. So those kids are now doing everything in their power to keep that from happening. Last week, a group of 11 kids of TPS recipients traveled to Rome to take their case to Pope Francis, asking him to intervene. Kevin Palma and Lisbeth Landaverde were among the group. They join me now, along with Kevin's father, Jose, who came to the U.S. from El Salvador and became a TPS recipient in 2001. It's great to meet all three of you. Thank you for being here. Jose, let me start. Why did you leave El Salvador 20 years ago?
Well, the first, and I think the most important reason was that there was no opportunity. I grew up during the Civil War. The Civil War in El Salvador started in 1980 and lasted for 12 years. My parents lost everything during the Civil War, from being farmers and cultivating and corn and all those things. We ended up with nothing, and there was no opportunity for me and for my little sisters that were also growing at the same time.
Do you still have roots there or none?
Yeah, my mother is still over there. My siblings, 3 of my siblings are in El Salvador, and the rest of my family.
Well, and I was reading, knowing you were coming, the World Bank a year or so ago called El Salvador the murder capital of the world. The State Department issued a travel warning this past July, saying that there was lots of violence. There's still not stability in your home country.
That's one of the arguments in this situation that we are facing right now, that the U.S. government is telling to the U.S. citizen, don't go to El Salvador, but yet the government is saying people that have been protected by TPS are ready to go back to your country. And that's kind of like, double standards.
You're his kid.
Yep.
You got some siblings, too. How did this idea come about? It's one thing to lobby for something you care about. A lot of young people are doing that. How did the idea to approach the Pope to ask him to intervene come about? Where did that come from?
Well, we've grown up as a Catholic family, and we've always known that the Pope has a really strong voice. And, well, with my parents, teaching me as a young kid, telling me that the Catholic Church, they can help throughout any problem, having the Catholic faith with Jesus and the Pope.
Did you ever think he'd meet with you? He did. I mean, when I first heard about this story from a friend, I said, that's a great idea, but he's never going to take time to meet with 11 kids, half of whom were from Massachusetts. Do you ever think this is going to happen?
Honestly, I thought it wasn't going to happen. When I was told that we were going to be in a general audience with him and we're going to have about 30 minutes, to myself, I thought, I really don't think this might happen.
So what was this like? I mean, this is arguably one of the most powerful people on the planet. What was that experience like, Elizabeth?
It was really emotional. It was like we were all so nervous. Right before he came and talked with us, we were all talking amongst ourselves, and we were all so nervous. We were shaking. It was such a joy to be able to hear him support us. And
what did you say? What did you say to him when you first? I don't mean just you. It's fine if it's you, but what did you as a group say to the Pope?
Well, first we greeted him, and then I gave him the card, and I started explaining what was on the card. And I'm like, I was introducing us. I was like, we are here representing our parents that have TPS. We come to ask you to come to Congress with us in February. And then he started talking with us, telling us that migrating is a human right. And
we have some of that, actually. Let me play a little bit of that. This is with subtitles, but this is a little piece of the interaction between them and their friends and the Pope. Here it is.
Somos parte de la lucha de los inmigrantes en los Estados Unidos.
Sigan luchando, ¿eh?
Gracias, papá.
Gracias. Migrar es un derecho humano, ¿está claro?
Sí.
Y nadie lo puede impedir.
Sí.
What did that feel like when he said migration is a human right? You don't hear that much in this country from our leadership, but you heard it from him. What did that feel like?
It felt like a victory. Knowing that someone with such high power was saying that we had the right and that no one can take it away from us, it was such a joy.
Do you have any hope that he'll do something? I mean, whether he comes in February or not, do you have a hope that the Pope will follow up on this? I mean, he has spoken a lot about immigration, but do you think words will be matched by action, Kevin?
Yes, I do actually. Because, well, basically most of our governors and politicians in the government are believers of the Catholic faith or you know, believe in Christianity. And this man has a really strong voice within the Christianity.
You know, we're talking about a really serious subject, but there was a less serious subject that came up. You're on crutches because you ripped something or other, right?
Yeah.
What did the Pope say to you about that?
He asked me if it was during a soccer game.
And it was, right?
It was.
And then the conversation continued. You said something about it. He's a big soccer fan, as we know. Yeah. What did he say to you?
Well, towards the end, since he was walking away, I basically said, "Hey, Barcelona with Lionel Messi." And since they're both the same nationality, he laughed and he gave me a thumbs up.
That's unbelievable. You know, if this happens, and obviously I hope most people at home share hope that it doesn't, as your family does, all 4 of your kids are United States citizens, right?
All of them.
So if you're deported, what happens?
I think that's kind of like the big question that many of us are facing and many youth like them are facing at this specific moment. We're talking about countrywide in the whole United States, we're talking about 400,000 people with TPS. Yeah. And I usually say it's not only 400,000 people with TPS, there are 400,000 families because usually we are the head of the family.
Right, but I want to talk about your family, not
about
the other
my family.
What happens, I'm serious, I'm sure you worry. What happens if the worst happens and you are deported? What happens? Do you family separate? Does everybody go back to El Salvador? What happens?
I think those are the conversations that we're having at home. For example, we have been really focused on building this campaign because we believe that we want to win the permanent resident. But the conversation, at least at this specific moment, has been, well, Kevin is old enough. We will have to face that reality, whether he will have to stay by himself in the United States to continue looking for his dream of being a cardiologist. And we're not sure about our 13-year-old girl, whether she's going to stay here with Kevin or she will have to be forced to go to a country like El Salvador.
But if you leave, you don't know when you can even come back, if at all, to see your kids or your family. How worried are you about losing your father to deportation?
Honestly, it's a thought that goes around my mind almost every day now.
Is it all and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I just have to go through the day. It's it's like a thorn in me.
Both your parents are TPS recipients, also from El Salvador. Are you worried about losing them?
Oh, I'm extremely worried. At dinner sometimes we have conversations. My little sister, she's 9 years old, she starts to cry thinking of our family having to separate. Either her leaving me, my older sister, and my 14-year-old sister, we would stay here. She doesn't know if she would stay with us or go with our parents.
How do you comfort you're a kid, but you're not a little kid. How do you comfort a little kid who you love when fear fills her body? What do you say to make her not worry about her parents being separated from her?
We tell her that that's why we're fighting, that's why we do all of this. She was really sad when we left to Italy this past week, but I told her it's going to be to save our family, to keep us together for longer. 1 week away from them was going to keep us together, and that's what I really hope that we can accomplish.
So before we leave here, what do you say to people at home who care about this, want to keep your family together, want to keep Lisbeth's family together, want to keep all of the hundreds of thousands of families together, many of, again, whom kids are U.S. citizens? What do you say to them, Jose?
I think for people that are at home and sometimes when they heard the word immigration, start thinking about other things. I think it's for us, people with TPS, we have been here in the United States for more than 22 years. We have been doing and we have pretty much learn what the American culture is. We participate in our communities as soccer coach. We work in different places like taking care of elders. We work in places like hospitals, milk delivering, taking care of buildings, cleaning.
Like
so
everybody else.
We are part of this community. So what I will say is like think and close your eyes for just 5 seconds, and you have been in the United States, let's say in Massachusetts, for the last 22 years. Your kid is applying to college. Your daughter is telling you, I want to participate in my soccer team and all this thing. Think for 5 seconds. One day you get told, pack your things, you need to go back to a country you don't know. What will you say to your kids, and what your kids will think about it? So that's why we believe that we can achieve a permanent residency, and that's the solution. We have to convince Congress and President Trump to pass a permanent residency for people with TPS.
I hope it happens, Jose. It's really good to see you.
Thank you.
You two are unbelievable. Kevin,
you.
it's great to meet you. And Lisbeth, same to you. Congratulations on your advocacy. I hope it comes out positively. Thanks so much.